Greetings, this is Ty Brown, and welcome to the Business of Creativity podcast, the unofficial podcast of the Grazie Dio Business School. I'm joined today by Laura Ahn. Laura is a second-year MBA on pace to graduate soon from Grazie Dio. Greetings, Laura. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me.
I'm happy to have you, actually. Of course, we came in as the same cohort, so we got to know each other well. A little bit about your background. You went to Loyola Marymount for undergrad. Here at Grazie Dio, your concentration is leadership and managing organizational change. You're already working full-time at the Walt Disney Company. And prior to Walt Disney, you worked with the American Honda Motor Company. So you have a wealth of experience, and you're going into a company that from outside looking in, everybody celebrates Disney, right? Who knows what the company is like on the inside, but for us, Disney is what we all grew up with. I guess I'll start. The question I have for you here, I kind of want to just talk about your MBA journey and your journey here, some of your experiences, because I think it's interesting. First, tell us a little bit about what you did at American Honda Motor Company. Is that just Honda, or what is it?
Yeah, it's like the Honda. Cars,
the
like
American
the
branch of Honda, right? So American Honda Motor Company. Okay, I thought it was interesting.
Right.
But tell us a little bit about your experience there.
Okay. So most recently, before I joined Pepperdine's MBA program, I was their digital client relations region manager. So during my time, I was managing a team of over 20 people, and they were responsible for communicating with our customers across social, so Facebook and Twitter, through email, live chat, and text messaging.
Okay. Interesting. And then, of course, I worked for a long time at the American Football Coaches Association, and there's always a couple things that I highlight when I worked with them, right? One was starting a graduate assistant program where I had 3 graduate assistants who got their tuition paid for while they were there. So when I talk to people in terms of that have experience, I always want to ask them, is there anything that you highlight when you talk about a former work experience?
Yeah. So with this role, I remember right when I came in, they were looking to launch the text messaging channel with our customers. And this was like a project that had, been on hold for a year. And I remember within the first 2 months of me joining this department, we got it up and running. And what ended up happening was, I came in and knew that there was for our customers to have an additional communication channel. And they'd been saying that they wanted to be able to text us too, in addition to being able to call us, talking to us on socials, emailing. So I think this was a really fun project for me because I put on my hat of really getting the whole contact center really engaged, and we made it into like a fun competition. So first and foremost, we needed to come up with the business process, of course, and the training, and I developed all that. I worked with all of the management and the leadership and got them all on board. But then the fun part was really when I engaged 600-700 agents, trained them on the new technology, and then we made it into like a fun competition from different departments. And essentially it was like whoever can leverage this technology the most, like they ended up getting a party afterwards. And I think that was a highlight from this role.
Yeah, that's interesting. You came in as a change agent. You basically change management is what you did for an organization. That's excellent. Were you there? I know Honda had a big recall on things. I don't know what it was about, but my memory, certain things are in my brain. But Honda had a big recall. All the car companies have had recalls, but I think Honda had a real big one. Were you there when that happened? Were you involved in that at all?
Yes. So it was one of the largest safety recalls to hit our industry. It was for the airbag inflator, and there were unfortunately fatalities. And this is right when I joined Honda, and I was able to participate in their project management team, which was a great opportunity for me to come in as like a project manager and get a lot of exposure to different departments cross-functionally. And it was with all pretty much executive and senior management. So in the 2.5 years that I was on this project management team, For 10 million vehicles, essentially, we were at like 18% completion rate of this recall. And then by the end of it, I think we reached almost 70%, which was a huge feat. Again, there were 10 million cars that were impacted, and I was responsible for, various projects that we launched to help get into the dealerships and fix them. And believe it or not, it's really hard to do that. I mean,
so you're like just reaching out, like, hey, like your car, you don't want this airbag to go off while you're on the freeway or something. Like,
you have to be really creative. I mean, you can tell people that there's a tornado or something, a hurricane, and some people will still not evacuate. So you can tell them that there's a deadly safety recall for their vehicle and they still won't come in. So we really needed to get creative and have fun and come up with, different initiatives that were going to bring the customers in.
That's an excellent experience coming into the MBA program, right? Project management. You said you led a team of people. You left the organization better than you found it, right? So just a number of different things. I want to talk about your MBA journey a little bit. So you come into the MBA. You come from that background where it's like kind of like corporate communications, kind of change management, and you come in. And from what I know about you, you weren't necessarily sure what direction you wanted to do with the MBA program, but you're leaving working in human resources, right? Yeah. Full-time job, done internships, etc. Talk to us a little bit about how you got on that path, right? How did being here help you get on the path to go into human resources?
Yeah. So at American Honda, I was also working very closely with the VP of HR there. He knew me from when I was an intern and we had a really good relationship. And he actually tapped me and said, we have a really big need for our young professionals in the workplace. And he encouraged me to help start our young professionals business employee resource group. And so from the ground up and from scratch, I was able to recruit our executive leadership team. I helped develop our business plan, manage our budget, came up with all our marketing and communications, like our logo and all of that. It took a little less than a year to really create the foundation for this group. And for our launch day, I remember it was in a small conference room. And there were over 100 people that joined us from across the company to come and see what we were all about. And I think in that first year, we had over 300 members join our group. So that was my first, exposure in the DEI space, working with human resources. And so coming into the MBA and having the project management experience, having led teams, having worked with leadership, I looked at what types of opportunities there were. And luckily I took the career leader assessment report where, I kind of saw maybe where my interests aligned with jobs that exist. And the first thing that came up was human resources management, which at the time it just kind of, I didn't really think much of it. But I met with John Kogler and I was like, I don't know, I'm thinking maybe this project management route, but I'm not really sure, what I want to do. And so after speaking and hearing about the things that I really enjoyed from my past experience, we started exploring different career paths. And eventually he did share with me an opportunity at the Walt Disney Company for an HR business partner. And I had not known about that role in the past because that role didn't exist at American Honda. Exactly. So I looked into it. I even watched like a YouTube video of what HR business partners do. I think the company was at LinkedIn, and business partners get to work with clients, which are pretty much leaders of the business. And I was like, hey, I did stuff like that. And I love building relationships. And I like that this role brought together like the strategy side and then also just like my passion for working with people and on teams and like thinking about the employee experience and engagement.
Yeah, which is actually, before you continue, let me interject here. I got two questions. You said two things that I think are important. First, Jonathan Kogler, right? It's part of the Career and Professional Development Office, right? Which helps us get in the direction we want to go. And then the second thing, which you actually said first, was this career, what do you call it? The assessment or something like that?
Yes, the career leader report.
I don't even remember taking that. And actually, for some reason, for me, I'm one of those weird guys who I don't trust any of those reports anyway. But it sounds like this career leader report was actually pretty important in terms of the direction you want to go when you got here, right?
I never really thought that it would lead me down this path, but I'm so glad that I was given the opportunity to take it. And I think one of my professors said this in class yesterday, like, oh, all MBA students, like, we come out having taken so many of these,
yeah,
whether it's
little assessments and strength
yes,
finders and things like that, right?
exactly, StrengthsFinder. So I would definitely recommend. I think this really does help guide and maybe provide some answers that you might not have had before. But I know sometimes we can feel so inundated with, again, like how many times we take these assessments, but it helped me.
You felt like, I guess you take an assessment and it gives you the results of the assessment, right? Kind of like this is a profile of based on how you answered our questions. Do you feel like it describes you well in terms of you?
Yes, I did think so. But again, remember, like the first time I received the responses, I was just like, oh, I take so many of these and I didn't really think of it. But now looking back and seeing where I am, it's just funny what the coincidence is that the result and then where I am today is.
Hey man, that says a lot, right? Maybe I should have taken
it. This is your sign to take it.
Yeah,
now.
right, exactly. So, okay, so then Kogler over in Career and Professional Development points out a internship in HR, and you do your research on YouTube. What is this? What are we doing? And you realize that you probably have done a little bit of it, but you also value some of the things it represents. So then you apply. Tell us about this internship application process. What I know about you is you tend to get nervous about things that I don't think you should be nervous about. But tell me about the process of applying to the internship, right?
Like this interview right now.
Hilarious.
I will say that we did have a Pepperdine alum at the Walt Disney Company, which we have so many alum at Walt Disney Company because of our location, right? Both located in LA. So that's what I really loved about my strategy in working with our CPD department and the group and the support that we have there is because they have a plethora of resources in terms of like being able to make the connections with our alumni who want to help bring us up, right? I mean, they also went to Pepperdine, so they want to see us succeed. So I was able to get an interview with the recruiter, and then there was a total of 4 interviews. But that was kind of the process there, which I think personally helped me so much, was first and foremost getting connected with CPD, who then connected me with alumni who helped me get my foot in the door. Because, I mean, I read this on LinkedIn too, where they always say, like, you know, you're putting your resume through all these portals. And I think there are some people who are successful, but I think
having somebody on the inside is
it's the relationships that you build and the networking. I think that is the differentiator.
Yeah, were the interviews tough? I mean, how was that process like?
It's definitely nerve-wracking. I personally don't really like interviewing, but I did a lot of studying. Of course, I reached out to our resources at CPD, but I also leaned heavily on my network that I have outside of Pepperdine and the mentors that I've maintained my entire career, and they've led me to other resources that I found. And there's actually career coaches online that you could find on YouTube or LinkedIn that post videos on tips of how to interview. And I felt that was really, really crucial for me and very helpful during my preparation.
Right? Mm-hmm. That's hilarious. But yeah, that's interesting to know. So the internship, from what I recall, it was with ABC, that part of Disney, or tell me what area.
So Disney, so there's a segment for Walt Disney Television, and Disney owns ABC and ABC News. So I worked for their ABC News organization. So my client group was like journalists, news anchors, like, crew for, editorial staff and things like that for ABC News, like Good Morning America, ABC News, World News with David Muir, This Week. Like those were the shows that I helped support.
Internship, right? Now you're leaving as a full-time staffer at Disney. Yeah. So tell me about the transition from an intern to a full-time staffer, right? Yeah. I mean, did they approach you while you were interning? Did you see an opening and you applied? Like, who was the initiator on that?
Great question. So I live by this. You are in control of your career. And that was the strategy I had from the get-go with Pepperdine is yes, we have wonderful resources, but they're not going to just, appear and serve things on a silver platter. Although when you get there, they do. But you really have to show that initiative. And so that's what I did with coming and working with CPD. And then same thing with Disney. Right when I got there, my strategy was, how can I let them know that I have an interest in, continuing my employment with the company? And so at the offset, I had already mentioned to my management, like, I have the intentions of staying here. Like, what can I do to stay? And of course, they can't really promise you employment sometimes because they don't have headcount, let's say, in the department. But what I continued doing was, Disney and many other companies are known for the relationships that you build there. And so in knowing that, I read, internal newsletters, I joined clubs, I went on different forums, and I met people through doing that. And I read an article of someone who was like at a higher level in my career path, and I just pinged her. And people love when you reach out to them to just ask, like, I'd love to know more about your career path. So I reached out to someone, and she actually said, hey, we have an opening on our team. And I ended up being able to interview directly with the hiring leader right after that, and went through that entire process. And they hadn't hired anyone for a year. They were really particular of who they wanted for this role. And so just because I went out and reached out to someone and, was vocal about my intentions and what I wanted, that's what the result was.
Laura Ann showed up. What you talking about? Oh, that's who we want. Job, yours, hired. Interesting. I'll switch code a little bit, and then we'll come back and wrap on career things. So since we've been here, right, over these 2 years, you know everybody in the history of the program. And then when the first years comes in, you know everybody in the history of the first years.
No. That's you.
You're like Ty. Pretty much
you.
The social chair of the full-time MBA program.
I don't know what you're talking about. That's you. But anyway.
But think about it, right? Passion for people, right?
Totally.
And a passion for people, basically, what you just described to us here on this podcast is that your passion for people has pretty much influenced some of your decisions throughout your career. Tell us about that. I mean, tell us some people don't know that exists until they sit down and do an assessment. But I feel like you knew that you had a passion for people early on. So tell us how that has impacted parts of your career in terms of your journey.
Okay, my passion for people. I think, again, you just have to be open and willing to take those opportunities with people. And that's how I felt here. I mean, I think if you're going to be closed off and maybe don't want to make those connections, because like once you make a connection, they just kind of
start happening. Right?
Yes. And it just exponentially grows. But then you also have to just be open and willing to make those connections. So same thing with my career. I was just thinking and looking back at all of the connections and mentors that I have and all the close leaders in my life that I'm able to just like lean on when I have some career advice questions. And it was because like I always valued creating those authentic relations with the people that I was working with. Always my boss. Like I always made sure that I had a very good and close relationship with my boss. So I hope I answered your question about like how
valuing authentic relationships. Yes. And once you make it, especially in this type of thing where people are like on this career discovery path, right? Like most of us are when we come to the MBA, and you make those connections, then it spider webs into a connection of a lot of people. And then you're like Laura, and you're the social chair because everybody knows Laura, right? It's interesting. You said something there, though, I want to touch on. I have a philosophy, and it's basically, as we grow up in our careers, we take from the bucket of knowledge, right? And the bucket of knowledge that either we learn on our own through our experiences, through book knowledge, or that, like you said, mentors pour into us. Just our bosses or people we work with, we learn and we go off into the world. And then we get to a position where now we got to put it back in the bucket, right? Now we got to be the mentor. Now we got to coach up the young folks. And this is part of that social chair thing, whether you want to accept it or not. Now you got to bring these first years along and connect them with second years and other people who are in other parts of the business school. You have any thoughts on that, on mentorship and putting it back in the bucket, basically bringing people along so that everybody's around you is successful?
Oh, I'm a huge advocate for that. Whenever someone helps me, that's the first thing I say. Like, thank you so much for agreeing to meet with. And this is what I'm saying is these are like the new people that I like reach out to on LinkedIn. I always say like, thank you so much for agreeing to meet with me and giving me your time. Like, I promise to pay it forward. Because you know how it feels when you're sending those notes on LinkedIn,
Right.
and it's hard when
Out
you
into the
don't
black
get
hole, and you have no
yes.
idea
And
exactly.
sometimes you don't get a response back, but you do. There are people who are happy to speak with you. And so when you say putting it back in the bucket, like that is very important to me. If there's any insight that I could share with anybody or help anyone out, like I still need help and will continue to need help always. So I'm always willing to lend a helping hand.
The helping hand, putting it back in the bucket. I got that from a old football coach, right? So you got to put it back in the bucket, man. You didn't get here by yourself. So I'll ask you this final question and then we'll wrap. And it's interesting because you and I had a conversation recently and we were talking about at work. You wanted to approach one of the people you worked with or for about more responsibilities, or maybe there was another position or something, and you were trying to figure out how to bring that up. I was almost like you're trying to find the courage to do it, right? I just got here. Who am I to ask about a new position? But I think you did talk to the person. And so I kind of want you to, I think that's an interesting almost case study in how to go about almost the self-promotion aspect of here's what I've done, here's what I want to do. What do you think? So tell us about that conversation.
Yeah. So something about me, I think, one, as you can tell from the stories I've been telling, is I'm vocal, or at least I try to be in most situations. But two, there's like that ambition, and I've always been that way with my career. I show initiative when I can, and I'd been in my role for 4 months, and the colleague that I shared with you, who had brought me onto the team originally for my internship, who I was like, "Hey, nice to meet you," and she shared that she had the opening on her team. She ended up leaving the company for promotion, and she left me just like, "Oh no, I feel bad. Like I brought you on, but I left you." And even during the time that she was transitioning out, I was like, well, her work is being transitioned over to me, and this is a great opportunity for me to ask, my director about what that might look like for me to put my name in the hat. And of course, like I mentioned, I've only been here for 4 months. Right. And I was like, well, if she's not already thinking about giving me a promotion, like, should I be a little weary that she hadn't approached me about it? Yeah. But again, I reached out to all my network. I must have had 5, 6 separate conversations with you too. Ty included. You were in one of those conversations about like, how should I approach this? Like, I'm worried, will I seem too, self-promoting by going out there and shooting my shot and telling them I want the role? I've only been here 4 months. Is it going to seem too eager? Asking for more, all those things, all those questions. And I looked to my network about how to navigate it. So I ended up being able to, after having all those career advice conversations, John Kobler was another one of the folks that I talked to about how to navigate this. And they all encouraged me to go for it. Every single person was like, you need to be vocal because they might not even know that you have an interest. So I went for it. And of course there was like, oh my gosh, you gave me something to think about. And at first my thought was, if she's not thinking about me, is that a bad sign? But what it is like she's thinking about the person that she's losing, and she's having to think about all these other things. But what I did was I came to her with a solution, which is, I'm already here. I'm doing the job. Some of it's being transitioned over to me. How can I help, and what value can I bring while doing that? So that was the conversation that we had.
Yeah, that's excellent. And I guess we'll see the outcome of that after the podcast, right?
Yes.
In terms of where you go.
It's in the works, Ty. It's in the works.
That's an excellent case study in self-promotion, but also helping to solve a problem for the person you work with, right? I mean, there was a problem at hand that she probably was considering, and you come to her like, hey, I mean, I know I've only been here this long, but this is a problem and I have a possible solution to help solve that problem, which anybody in leadership roles, right? If you got some solutions for me, let's go so we can
Yes,
continue moving forward. So,
exactly.
well, Laura, this has been an excellent conversation. I really appreciate you telling us about your journey, about the assessment, career and professional development, about how you got into HR, passion for people, agreeing with my philosophy and putting it back in the bucket, and pretty much everything we've talked about. I really appreciate you joining us here on the Business of Creativity podcast.
Oh, likewise, Ty. Thank you so much for having me. This was so much fun. We're just sitting across from one another, just laughing, smiling, and always have a great conversation with one another, I feel like. So thank you.
That was Laura On. Laura is a second-year MBA on pace to graduate soon, and she has a full-time job working in human resources at the Walt Disney Company. Of course, this is Ty Brown with the Business of Creativity podcast, the unofficial podcast of the Grazia Deal Business School. Keep in mind, the role of a leader is to create and maintain an environment that people want to be a part of. And as always, be better tomorrow than you are today.